So Trump is talking about creating a new tax collection agency, the External Revenue Service. Some are saying this could be a hint towards abolishing federal income tax. Here's what Trump posted. For far too long, we have relied on taxing our great people using the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, through soft and pathetically weak trade agreements. The American economy has delivered growth and prosperity to the world while taxing ourselves. It's time for that to change. I am today announcing that I will create the External Revenue Service to collect our tariffs, duties, and all revenue that come from foreign sources. We will begin charging those that make money off of us with trade, and they will start paying, finally, their fair share. January 20th, 2025 will be the birth date of the External Revenue Service. Make America great again. I want to point out that though he's criticizing taxing Americans' income, he's not exactly calling for the abolition of income tax, but maybe this is just a step, like the first step. And then we can hope that maybe he'll then move in the direction of actually abolishing income tax. Trump was also recently on Joe Rogan's podcast where he explained why the country moved away from tariffs towards income tax. Watch this.
Unless they pay a big price, and the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. You know, they, believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make then and now. But we had a commission meeting in the, I think it was 1887. Think of this problem. We were so rich, we had so much money, we didn't know what to do. So they set up a blue ribbon commission on tariffs. And the sole purpose is what to do with all the money we had. We were so rich because we were taxing other people for coming in and taking our jobs. And China does it. That's what China did. If you want to open a factory and sell cars. If you build a factory here or have a factory, they don't take our cars. They wouldn't take our cars. But if you build a plant in China, you can do that. Elon did that. By the way, Elon is great. That guy is such a great guy. I think you're a fan of Elon. Him. He is from a different planet. He's a
He might actually be from a different planet, but from the future or whatever. Anyway, let's get back to the tax issue here. So a little history lesson about income tax. Income tax wasn't even a thing in this country until the Civil War. The government, of course, using war as an excuse, as we got to fund the war effort. So they put a very small income tax. It was only about 3% on people to fund the war. And it was temporary. And they did repeal it after the war. But because they had this precedent, of course, they then thought, well, in the future, we could maybe do this again. And that exactly is what they did. In 1913, the government then created the Federal Reserve to centralize control over money and debt. And at the same time, they created the 16th Amendment, which legalized federal income tax. So with the two of those entities being taken together at the same time, the Federal Reserve thinking, all right, well, now we're going to control all the money. Well, where are we going to get the money? Oh, well, hey, look, here's the 16th Amendment. Let's go ahead and create income taxes and start taxing the people. So that is what they did. World War I, another war, gave the government another excuse to level up those income tax, and they really did. It wasn't 3% like in the Civil War. They soared with the top tax rate getting 77%, and millions of the middle-class Americans were dragged into the tax base. But even after that war ended, what happened? The income tax never went away. It only grew, funding an increasingly bloated federal government, continued to grow. Even after the 1950s, after the Second World War, they really ramped up income tax. I want you to look at, now looking back at tariffs, let's kind of look at the history of revenue of tariffs in this country. So this is a graph here showing, this is from 1798 to 2023. And you could see how much revenue the tariffs brought in. And you could see the dips. So that first dip, that's the Civil War. See that first dip, Civil War. Then tariffs were collected again after the Civil War. And then you could see that big dip is right at the creation of the Federal Reserve and the adoption of the 16th Amendment. That's when the government went away from tariffs almost entirely. and went to income tax. And then there was another dip that really just sort of did away with tariffs altogether. And that was after World War II. After World War II, the government took a more liberalized, globalized approach, wanted to do a lot more trade with the world, and thought, okay, tariffs are harming that effort. So they got rid of tariffs and they started doing income tax. Thomas Massey points this out even more with another graph. He tweeted this out saying, for most of our country's history, the federal government was funded by tariffs. There was no income tax. The budget was mostly balanced and federal spending was less than 10% of GDP. And he also shows this graph here, also from 1792 all the way until this graph here goes until, I can't see that, but it goes to about now. And you can see there, the orange is tariffs. And that's what they were taking. These were that's what where they got federal income and revenue, and then income taxes in red. And that didn't really start until after the creation of the Federal Reserve and the adoption of the 16th Amendment. So, and then payroll tax, also they've been collecting that, and that's in gray. So this is where the government gets all of their money, and they have a bloated budget and they blow it. We all know that. So there's a big discussion here. Do we still need these income taxes? Can we move to tariffs? Can we move back to tariffs and using those instead rather than taxing the people? A new bill has been introduced. We'll see if Trump's going to put his if he's really going to do it. If he's going to put his money where his mouth is. I don't know if it's really money or if he's going to give us the money back. But this bill is put out. This is Congressman Buddy Carter, who is, which state is Buddy Carter from? Is he Georgia? I think so. Anyway, put out a bill. We'll see if this gets anywhere, but it's to promote freedom, fairness, and economic opportunity by repealing the income tax and other taxes, abolishing the Internal Revenue Service, and enacting a national sales tax to be administered primarily by the states. So that is potentially going to be put forward at the federal government. If Trump continues using his bully pulpit, maybe we'll actually get somewhere with this. I would love to see the income tax. I think obviously just right. I would love to get rid of taxes. Income tax and property tax, to me, I feel like are a highway robbery by the government onto the people. That is just, but I have to be honest, I haven't studied the issue enough to fully know it. We're going to be talking to an expert here in just a second, but I do want to show you one criticism. And these are the types of criticisms that are coming in. This one's Ed Krasenstein. He says the United States collects approximately $2.6 trillion annually in income tax revenue. In comparison, the U.S. generates only about $100 billion a year from tariffs. That means tariffs currently account for just 1/26 of the revenue brought in by income tax. Now let's look at the math. The total value of imports into the U.S. is about $3.96 trillion per year. To replace $2.6 trillion in income tax revenue solely with tariffs, the government would need to impose an average tariff of 66.4% on all imports, and that's assuming imports wouldn't decrease, which they absolutely would. This is not just impractical, it's catastrophic. Many American-made products rely heavily on imported materials and components. Slapping a 66.4% tariff on these imports would send manufacturing costs soaring, leading to skyrocketing prices for consumers. Inflation would hit record levels, and the ripple effects would devastate the economy. This idea isn't just unrealistic, it's economically dangerous. All right, so these are the criticisms. I hear it, right? Joining us now is Peymon Mottahedeh. Peymon is the founder of the Freedom Law School, founded in 1996, about the U.S. Constitution, the American system of laws, and how to stop paying federal taxes they do not legally owe. He himself has openly not filed or paid any federal income tax or payroll taxes for over 30 years, and the IRS has gone after him on numerous occasions, and they have been unable to find Peymon to have broken any tax laws. So needless to say, I think Peymon is probably the single most knowledgeable person regarding taxes in this country. Peymon, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me with you, Kim.
Okay, let's break this down. Are you a fan of this? You want to get rid of the income tax and move on to tariffs? What do you think?
Well, we don't have to get rid of it because it only applies legally right now to citizens and residents of Washington, D.C., not the people of the 50 states. We just have to recognize that. Trump realized that. Stop applying the income tax that legally does not apply to people of the 50 states, and then
Hmm.
make up the revenue shortage, as you said, with tariffs, by cutting all the corruption and waste in the federal government. Because as you've heard, only 6% of federal workers actually show up to the job and work 40 hours a week like most regular Americans do. And then we can also bring more revenue by taxing foreigners who want to immigrate to America. If Elon Musk wants to bring someone from India to work at Tesla, he can do that, but he has to pay him more because that foreigner will pay income tax, whereas American workers won't. This way, everybody's happy and foreigners are paying the tax. Oh, on top of that, Harvard and all the schools out there, universities that bring in foreign students, there's going to be tax on that also. They charge double or triple for foreign students than they
Right.
charge American students. Well, let the Americans pay the same. Foreigners will pay more. With all this, we can get rid of this income tax and all the jobs that gone to China and other countries over the decades. They're just coming back here. We'd be just so prosperous. It'd be unbelievable to everybody that will see it.
Okay, so I know you don't. I look. After you were on the show last time, I went to my husband. I said, I had a guest on today, and he hasn't paid income taxes in 30 years, and the government's tried going after him. They've never been able to actually get him because we don't actually have to pay income tax. So maybe we shouldn't pay income tax. And I've said this not only to him but a few other people. And even if it's true, the vast majority of us are just too afraid to even try. Peymon, we're not going to try. We're not going to try.
Well, that's the
And
problem.
so,
That's the problem, Kim. See, we got to stop being afraid. Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a regular, average Joe. He's not one of the corrupt elites. And the first time he had no idea how corrupt the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, all these agencies were. He found out, oh, wow, these guys are crooks. Okay. And we got to also recognize they don't have the power, Kim. Think about this. According to IRS's best numbers, there's over 80 million Americans who don't file income tax returns. 80 plus millions. Is there 80 million Americans in prison? Or have their bank account and paycheck taken by the IRS? Of course not. So they got this myth built up that the government is
yeah.
your friend, FBI, DOJ are wonderful people protecting you from bad guys. And at the same time, oh, Iris is such a Satan, you better not mess with the Iris and be a slave. So that's why one of the things I do, Kim, is I invite people to educate themselves at freedomlawschool.org. All the information is there is to lose your fear with knowledge. You know, people suffer for lack of knowledge and seek the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Yeah, I would be stressed out. I don't know if I'd be free. I'd be stressed out. Let's talk about tariffs though. I've had a lot of
Uh-huh,
conversations with people
uh-huh.
about what these would do and how they would actually work. The reality is the United States, like I know you say they don't have the actual power to tax us and do all of these things. They don't have the power to tax foreign countries. That's not, I mean, that's, so let's say Trump creates this external revenue service, which by the way, do we need one more government entity? Do we really need another government agency, another tax collection agency that one day will just still be somehow utilized against us? I don't know. But he says he's going to create this entity and that he's essentially, what people have in their mind is that he's going to go and tax like China. You can't tax China. I mean, that's not the way this would work, right? Tariffs are only collected at tariffs are collected at the point of entry. It's customs that collect tariffs. So the product would have to cross the US border onto US shore, be held by customs, inspected by customs, and then customs would levy the tax, the tariff on that good. And whoever comes to collect the goods would have to pay the tariffs. Or, there are some fancy setups where you have an account set up and you could pay in advance, because you've got a big business and you're constantly bringing in imports. but the charge doesn't happen until the product reaches US shores, and then the government says, okay, now we're going to tax it. People have in their mind that what he's going to do is tax, like send a bill to China, you know, and be like, oh, now you have to pay these big taxes to us, and that somehow China would be like, oh shit, I got to pay my taxes, you know, like the rest of us feel. And that's just not how this would work. How do you see this? I mean, my criticism of tariffs is this doesn't tax the foreign country. For one, governments don't send us products. It's not the country of China trading and doing business with the United States. It's Chinese businesses. Yes, I know that China owns a lot of these businesses or has a big, you know, footprint with these businesses or whatever it is, but it's still an American business owner uh, goes to a Chinese company and says, "Ooh, I want that product for cheap. I want to import it in." It's a business, American private business doing business with a Chinese business. It's not like we're, you know, the Chinese government is sending us all these things and then they're just getting away with it. So this is
Right.
really a tariff that's being levied on the private businesses, right? So it's, if I then want to buy this product, it gets to the US shore, and then I'm the one who's going to have to pay the tariff. You know, if it's 100% tariff, then I'm going to have to pay double to the government, to my government, not to China. China's not paying it. I'm paying it to the US government. I get levied the tax, so I have to pay it. So how do you think this is going to work? You know, that is more American businesses being taxed. What do you think of that? How's
I
that going to
think
work?
what's going to work is that the American billionaire like Apple and Tesla and all these other companies that were sending manufacturing to China, they'll think and
Hmm.
say, you know, rather than paying the tax for importing it, let me build that factory in the United States, hire Americans to do the work. So all the good jobs that over the last 50 years we send out to Japan, Korea, and not China are going to come back to the United States. Detroit, Michigan. Michigan been destroyed because car manufacturing was sent out to the third world. It will come back to America. We'd be more prosperous. So it's the way to have America be prosperous, bring the jobs back and industry back in the United States. That's what it will do.
Okay. But I think the understanding needs to be for people that this tax is not actually on foreign countries,
Yes,
that
other
this is
people.
on,
Yeah, other people. If you don't wanna, if you wanna bring stuff to America, you pay the tax. It's individuals who choose to make that product in China. If you choose to do that, you pay the tax. If you choose to set up your business in America, you won't pay the tax. It's that simple.
thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson show. If you want to watch the full show, visit KimIversonShow.com. The show airs every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's KimIversonShow.com. See you there.